Islam family, peace and love. I want to go in today on a topic I've been studying and into for a long time, and I really hadn't done nothing public dealing with this, but it's really important that I go into cryptocurrency. I want to do this like an intro into cryptocurrency and also public and private banking as far as when it deals with crypto. As an intro to Muurcoin, because there is a learning curve when it comes to crypto. So I want to put some facts out there and show some things so people understand what's going on, and we'll be able to expand from there further when it comes to crypto and dealing with the more coin. And my next video dealing with the more coin specifically will, it'll get into a lot of different things, but I wanted to have this, kind of as a base to get down, what exactly it is we're going over. So, as I do always, public and private is where I really focus things to basically better get an understanding of where we stand as Moors, and where Moors are trying to be and how they're trying to operate. So, first thing, dealing with the public in general, I got the definition up here of kind of what public is, or what it will be in the context of what we're going over now. So basically, public, when I say it in the context today, is governmental jurisdiction, and that can be any government, including the U.S. government, but not necessarily, because different governments feel different ways about crypto. Um, and I'll get into that later on. But it could also be traded on a public platform or wallet, in a sense, public. Just dealing in how the funds are being watched, and I'm gonna get in that when I get into the wallets and things of that sort. Um, and that could be the platform or blockchain too, possibly, if they get into that public realm. But for the most part, right now, um, blockchains don't fall under any jurisdiction. So um, let's get into it. Bitcoin, um, and I'm gonna be comparing it with the U.S. dollar, also with gold and silver, um, just to give a good understanding of uh, the differences between what's going on between the crypto, the fiat, and then the actual minerals. So Bitcoin is private in general. Um, but I did put in parentheses depending on the wallet, because there are some wallets that I would say compromise privacy. So in essence, Bitcoin is totally private. Um, but there are things you could do to bring it into the public. Um, and that comes with different implications. But the USD, that's public. Those are bills of credit, public, government jurisdiction. Um, and Bitcoin is not under the government's jurisdiction or United States jurisdiction necessarily. Um, Only certain people's assets, if I'll say that, um, dealing with their wallets. Um, and then gold and silver, that's it's public money if it's minted, but it could be private coming straight up out the ground. Now, Bitcoin, no jurisdiction, as I was saying. There's no jurisdiction that any crypto lives in, because it wasn't created under the essence of a country or anything like that there. And that's the same thing generally dealing with the internet, even though they've tried to come back after the fact and make it so where they're trying to be able to tax and things of that sort from internet things. But initially, the internet was pretty much in that same category. It was no jurisdiction, and that's where Bitcoin and all of these other cryptocurrencies are, which is why they're a threat to the current establishment. So going on to the USD, it's U.S. controlled by legislation. And I want to go into that to say you could write, or they have written up, that $1.9 trillion stimulus or something like that there, where they just flooded in new money into the market. That's not possible dealing with Bitcoin. There's only a certain amount of Bitcoins that can ever be mined based on algorithm, so you can't water it down or come in and tax on it and things of that sort. And those human uh, interactions are the things that really mess up what they so-called money or banking, currently, because there's people's hands in it. And when you get absolute power over funds, people tend to take advantage. Now, dealing with gold and silver, those are global mediums of exchange for the most part. So some governments try and control it, but there's very little you can do because it's a precious commodity. Um, Bitcoin is controlled by algorithm. So by it being controlled by an algorithm, basically there's no one that can go in and change anything dealing with how it will be issued. It's always going to work the same. And that's the beautiful part, because once it was put together, it's set up as a machine, so there's no way to come back and change it and add tax on top and things of that sort within the system that it's currently in. you know and that being the blockchain, which I'll get into exactly what that is in just a sec. Now, Bitcoin now uh, is considered an asset. Um, Technically, it could be considered a transmitting utility, which is why I put in parentheses, because it's somewhat being widely accepted, but it's still having a lot of resistance right now. The thing is, when dealing with cryptocurrencies, and this will get more into the Muurcoin, you don't want it necessarily labeled as an asset. You want it to be used as a transmitting utility. And that would be basically the Moors using the Muurcoin amongst ourselves in our own community. The asset part is how they treat Bitcoin when people buy in, try and buy low, sell high, and cash out. Um, that's not what you do generally, unless you're like a forex trader when it comes to your own national currency. So people that generally in their business deal in US dollars, they're not trying to buy US dollars, at a low inflation rate, and when it goes up, sell the US dollars for another um, medium of exchange. And that's basically what's going on with Bitcoin, which kind of puts it into the asset side of things, as far as it being qualified and not a transmitting utility, which is how we plan to use the Muurcoin. But more importantly, that is going to be dealing with our exemptions, having it as a transmitting utility or utility token, um, which is basically what the USD is. It's a transmitting utility, So that's the only thing, that those paper bills of credit, or even the digital credits, um, debit card or whatever, it's still computer, but it's not used for anything as considered having value, because it's not backed by anything. It's strictly a medium of exchange. Which, on the other hand, with gold is both an asset and a utility. It falls into both of those because of its intrinsic value, but also because people have been trading it for so many years. Um, all right, let's get back in Bitcoin. Um, this it's individual mining, and what that means is basically they're they're what you call miners, but these miners are basically computer networks that people have. Or you could say like supercomputers all connected to one big network. That's what miners are. So all of the information that is on the blockchain dealing with Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency that's mined comes from individuals. And that's as opposed to the USD, which is a government database of digital credit. So whereas that would be the banks and the Federal Reserve um, would have control over that and can manipulate that. Um, and then gold, that's public or private votes. Would be where that's held at. So that's deal with totally different. But in the context of the crypto, um, it's important that there's no one government that could take over Bitcoin because there's so many different people connected to this network of miners. Um, and that brings me to the blockchain, what the blockchain is. The blockchain is a digital ledger for banking. So you would think of the blockchain as what's the Microsoft, what's the one? Access or the spreadsheet one. Can't think of it offhand. Y'all don't tear me up in the comments for that. But basically, that spreadsheet would be a list of all the Bitcoin that's out there, the miners, and all the different wallet accounts on one digital type of spreadsheet. That's all a blockchain is. It is a digital ledger. But it may also have other coins as well. So on the blockchain that the Muurcoin and Bitcoin is connected to, called Counterparty, there are probably dozens, if not over 100 different type of coins, and they're not all popular and doing the same as Bitcoin or Muurcoin or anything like that. Some have very little value, some are value pretty high, but they're just different assets, basically all on a spreadsheet. Now, banks, they have a digital ledger also, but it's not the same. They have in accounting what you call T booking or double booking, things of that sort, where there's two sides of the account, and not to make this real deep into that, but basically that's how they clean their books and discharge. So that's a completely different thing, and that allows for the usury and things that are going on, and is how they control when they flood in all these extra funds, which is not possible on the blockchain. And just to give reference, if you were dealing with silver and gold, you would be dealing with a ledger, a metals ledger, which is a little bit different. If you know anything about precious metal accounts and things of that sort, it gets into all of that there. But back to Bitcoin. P2P only after mining. Peer-to-peer, person to person, or peer-to-peer. Basically, after the coins are mined, the transaction coming from the miner to whoever it is that would be getting the Bitcoin, for reference, or any other coin after it's mined, it would be person to person trade, because basically there's no one wallet account that would be higher than the other. Like, no administrative can do this and that over another. Even though there are large financial institutions that have got into Bitcoin and bought up, dozens, possibly, hundreds of millions, and maybe even billions worth, they're still on the same level in the blockchain, they're seen as the person that has, $5 worth of Bitcoin. There's no hierarchy with it. So that is much opposed to the way the banks work. Um, so instead of miners just computing out the next Bitcoin and the transaction going through, what happens is the Federal Reserve, they take orders from what the bank needs, even though they're a private, non-for-profit, shouldn't even be dealing with U.S. currency agency, so-called. you know they send money to the banks. So the banks, even from there, they get to doing all their usury and other stuff before it gets to the people, before it gets to the person to person level where it's like that. So there are two levels of oversight and corruption possible before it's on that person to person level where people are just dealing with each other in general business. And that's somewhat opposed to the silver and gold, because you can get silver and gold from anywhere out the ground. Even though there are regulations, I'm sure, in certain places. If you happen to stumble upon, a 50-pound nugget of gold randomly, yeah, you'll be all right regardless. There's ways of claiming that, unless you're in a country or some jurisdiction where they really, really hating. But as Moors, we know how to get around, little jurisdictional issues. A lot of times, depending on what's going on. Um, so this last little portion I want to get into, important dealing with it, is the wallets themselves. There are different types of wallets when it comes to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all these other ones, and the way they're set up in their system. So they call it central versus decentralized. What that really means in general, the sense of way I put it, is public versus private. You could say the centralized or the public, and decentralized or private. It's kind of interchangeable, but there's some little differences, and I definitely will be getting into that in you know uh, one of my later on videos when it comes to crypto and how to really do it. But I want to break down the public and private as far as for how we operate, because I know most Moors want to deal in the private. So in general, public wallets like Coinbase, as opposed to the free wallet, which is a decentralized wallet. It's a little brown wallet emoji. Y'all can look it up, and that's the one that the Muurcoin is on. But there are a few others as well. Um, but to get into the comparisons and the reasoning, in particular, that I would say go with private and decentralized wallets, um, getting into it is to they take control of your private keys on public wallets like Coinbase. So there's a private passphrase or code that, in my and most other people's opinions, you shouldn't be giving up, which only you have access to that, in a sense of these other decentralized or private wallets. The only thing is you have to absolutely keep up with it. If you lose it, it'll be like these people that have lost millions and billions in Bitcoin because they can't find their password. So, there are some pros and cons, but, you know, privacy is always where it's at. The thing is, like Coinbase and these other ones, they take public information. So names, IDs, socials, passport, things of that sort. Like, it's whole applications and things like that when dealing with these wallets. And, that brings you into the public arena. That makes your assets public to a sense, which makes them taxable, which is what I was talking about earlier. As opposed to when you use one of these private wallets, you download the wallet, they give you the password, you get your and you have your private assets to yourself. There's no way to really tie it to you because you don't put in name information and things of that sort. It's only your access keys that get you in, and you're able to trade like that. Now, some more traditional traders, Wall Street type people, will consider that janky to a certain extent and don't mind putting in their public information, dealing with their straw man and things of that sort. But it's not my cup of tea. I say it like that there. And the thing is that once you have these public wallets, it's forever public. And it falls up under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Basically, they can calculate, how much you've earned in these wallets and tax you for it, and you're liable. As opposed to just you being able to transfer a certain amount of funds into the public if you have a private wallet and that's what you wanted to do. There's ways of doing that, but I don't recommend it, or at least not much. Um, and the private wallet, you could say, is in the jurisdiction of the owner or no jurisdiction, like Bitcoin, depending, on the currency, because the Muurcoin in particular is under the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Heaven, which is a Moorish nation. So, I definitely wanted to get everybody up on these basic concepts before I go in a little bit deeper. And, any questions, definitely hit me up on the email, or anybody interested in getting into more coin, you can email me as well, Walter Bay, the number 7 more at gmail.com. Peace and love, family.